Hi, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. Very happy to be amidst all of you for this 90 minutes, where I hope to share some of my experiences and hopefully maybe get you excited about some of these possibilities as well. Very briefly about myself, my name is Nagendra Nyamgondalu. I go by Nagen or Nagendra, either is fine. I'm joining you today from Bengaluru, southern Indian city of Bengaluru. I've been in the technology industry for about 3 decades now. I spent a big part of that at IBM, both in the US and in India. And more recently, I was the director of engineering at Honeywell, where I was responsible for home automation systems. Past few years, I've been more of a coach, mentor, facilitator, trainer, consultant, whatever hat my customers require me to wear, and happy to be partnering with upGrad KnowledgeHut for this masterclass here today. I do a lot of other things with them as well in terms of facilitating some of their certification courses and such too. So that's briefly about me. And before I jump into this, should tell you a bit about what's my background in the two key topics we're talking about here today, which is Agile and AI. So my first foray with Agile was maybe about 12 years back when IBM decided that every part of the organization should move to an Agile way of working. And me and my team were among those who were among the early teams that began to adopt Agile. And looking back now, I think it was a couple of rough weather for a couple of months because we were all new to Agile. There was some skepticism in the team. There were some communication breakdowns that happen, as is likely to happen with any big transformation. But beyond that, I think we got to be a very robust model Agile team. And since then, I haven't looked back. Agility and Agile is something that I've been able to practice in pretty much every role since then and every opportunity since then. And I do act as an enterprise Agile coach, a mentor for Agile teams from time to time in the more recent years. Similarly, my first introduction to AI was probably around 2011 when IBM unveiled to the world its AI called IBM Watson. Now, I was not part of the IBM Watson research or the project behind that, but nevertheless, as an IBMer, it was a very exciting time for us because the way IBM unveiled AI to the world was they had the AI participate in a live TV quiz show called Jeopardy. Many of you might have heard of it, especially our friends who have joined us here from North America today. So in 2011, and you're welcome to go look up this video on YouTube. It's still there. If you just Google IBM Watson and Jeopardy, you'll find it very easily. So it was fascinating to see IBM Watson participate almost like a human participant, where it listens to the hosts elucidate the questions and answers with voice, right? So it was not like somebody was sitting and furiously typing the questions to IBM Watson. So right there, natural language processing, a very key aspect of AI, was very firmly entrenched with IBM Watson. And interestingly, it beat out the two human champions from the past seasons in that particular special series of Jeopardy by a huge margin, by a very convincing margin too. So it was an epochal moment, right? Almost like an epochal moment that AI had arrived. Granted, it was not for the design to win just game shows. That was just a way of making it like known in the world. But since then, the type of business use cases that AI has brought on are innumerable, very valuable, and phenomenal over the last 2+ decades easily. For example, I remember the same IBM Watson was adopted in a hospital chain here in this part of the world to help oncologists detect and diagnose rare forms of cancer, right? So starting with things like that, there are just so many use cases out there. Many of you might be knee deep in the using AI for your own organizations for various business processes and purposes, right? Now, the only thing about AI till the last couple of years was that to use and access the power of AI, you needed to have some very deep, specialized technical skills, mostly through code, right? If you needed to have your data set be assessed by a machine learning algorithm for a certain outcome, you needed to know how to write code, which algorithm to use, and all that. But what happened with the birth of generative AI, with OpenAI bringing out, pioneering something called Chat GPT 2+ years back, was a culmination of all that research to make AI available in a very simple interface to practically everybody in the world. You don't need any terribly deep, specialized technical skills to access AI anymore, because this generative AI is just like a little prompt window where you literally have a conversation with the AI. It completely obfuscates the vast amount of complexity behind the scenes, because all we see is the little window where we type a prompt and then it shares the outcomes back to us. But what's happening in the background is a variety of AI algorithms and AI tasks are running, deciding on your behalf, deciding based on your question what's the best way to respond, which is the best algorithm to run, and all that is done for you in the background, and you get the outcome back, right? So I think in a way, generative AI democratized AI, right? So thought I'll start you off with an interesting factoid, right? According to a recent report by McKinsey, knowledge workers, right, typically who work with data, who have a desk job, who work with information, who work with business processes, spend up to 60% of their time, and that's not trivial, right? 60% of the time on non-value adding tasks, like searching for some information, or switching between tools, or managing some processes which are still very analog in nature or very paper based in nature, and so on, right? And I'm sure that you can all add to this list as well based on your own experiences and observations. With that, I thought it's a good way to start thinking about how AI, and specifically generative AI, can actually bring in a huge difference in the productivity loss, right? So, I run a small business myself, and there are a couple of, at least a couple of functions in my small unit that we use AI for, generative AI specifically. And many of the customers I work with have begun to use generative AI for various purposes, right? And the overall feeling, the overall response, the overall shout out that I get, starting with my own ops guy and my marketing guy, with many of the customers, including many of the customers, is that at the very least, generative AI offers a 40% boost in productivity, right, for your daily tasks, regardless of what your role is, what function you're part of, which industry you're in, what organization you work for, right? Which is astounding. And as agile practitioners, are we taking advantage of this, right? That's the question I'm hoping to get you to start reflecting on today, right? I may not have all the answers because it's some shorter version, right? It's an up to a 90-minute masterclass, but I'm hoping to share enough with you to perhaps explore possibilities that you have not yet had a chance to, or build on what you're already exploring, right? So that's the thought behind what we're going to look at today. So if you look at the complexity of enterprise agile, right? When we talk about an enterprise agile transformation, basically we are saying that every part of the business should be adopting agile values and principles, and become agile in their way of working and in their mindset, the way they approach everything that they do. Sounds like a very nicely constructed statement, but I think we all know in reality that is hard to do. Not impossible. There are many organizations that are great success stories. Many of them might be your own organizations as well, where you work at today. But long story short, I think we all agree that there are many challenges, many complexities we have to deal with. And these are not one-time complexities or challenges that we get over and then it's done, right? It's going to keep coming back in various avatars, various of forms, and various different types of challenges. And I think that's something we can all easily agree on. And it starts with, if you have dozens of agile teams operating across distributed geographies, trying to come together for a common goal, a common project, or a common initiative within the organization, that creates challenges, right? Because communication breakdown can happen, information is not shared on time. Um, One team might pull in a different direction with a different priority, another team might pull in a different direction. There are so many things that can challenge us when there are many teams working together for a common goal. And the tools that they use, the data that they store, all of these can be fragmented as well, with often no single version of the truth. And because of some untimely communication breakdown, despite best intentions, there can be redundant backlogs between teams saying, oops, we were working on the same thing, we came up with a different version of it, and so on. There can be overlapping backlogs. Decision making can often run into bottlenecks because the people who need to make the decision don't have the data, and the people who have the data may not be in a position to make a decision, right? So all that back and forth can sometimes create bottlenecks. And ultimately, trying to get everybody together, trying to orchestrate this whole complex affair in terms of making sure that everyone is working with each other in a synchronous, harmonious way. Updates are handed off on time. We are aware of the dependencies on each other, and everybody is able to move together in a very harmonious fashion. To even attempt getting to do that is very time consuming, and often a lot of time is lost, right? So managing an enterprise agile transformation, especially at a large and complex scale, isn't just about velocity. That are we all able to make quick progress? It's about orchestration. Are we all able to make progress at the same time being aware of what the others are progressing in which direction, right? So this is where I believe generative AI can come in as a very valuable partner in the room. So often when people ask me that, so what do you think of generative AI? Ultimately, I boil it down to this one phrase, right? It's a very valuable partner in the room, a very intelligent partner that's there for you 24 by 7 and can mostly help you with whatever you're trying to do or achieve, right? With a bit of an asterisk there, that I'm not implying that we should blindly trust everything that AI returns to us. No, there absolutely needs to be human oversight and other guardrails for the responsible use of AI, no doubt. But if we get all that right, ultimately we are looking at a very valuable partner in the room that can work with us on whatever it is that we are trying to achieve and help us boost our efficiency, productivity to a degree that no other tool in recent memory has been able to achieve. Right? So it's again just like I described the 2011 IBM Watson participating in Jeopardy as an epochal moment. I think we are also in a very interesting time, almost like an epochal moment where the more we start using these generative AI tools, the more we are able to do more efficiently with less time and less effort. So where does that get us? What is the new normal is something to think about, right? So what are some of the things these generative AI tools can help us with? And when I refer to generative AI, there are many such tools out there, right? Starting with your chat GPT that many, if not all of you are already probably using for basic tasks, possibly more complex things as well. But there are many options out there, right? I like to think of generative AI as broadly divided into three categories or even four, right? The fourth one kind of being a bit of a digression. The first of which is your broad LLM based generative AI tools, which can help you with any topic under the sun. None of these AI tools have very special, specialization in any particular domain or function, but they can do a fairly decent job in basically whatever you talk to it about, right? Whether you're asking for help in an agile project context, and that's pretty much going to be our conversation today, or you're looking for some interesting new recipe in the kitchen, you're looking to solve a complex math or physics problem, you're looking to polish up your resume, whatever it is that you're trying to do, this first category can work with you. And this includes your ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, Claude.ai, and such, right? More generic, broad based, but very, how should I put it, very well trained AI systems. The second category I like to think of is your more niche domain specific AI tools, right? These are also broadly under the umbrella of generative AI systems, but these profess to be more trained in a specific area. For example, Julius.ai, one of my favorite AI tools, that clearly calls out that, hey, I'm the best AI tool to use if you're looking to crunch numbers, analyze data, come out with insights, visualize your data and patterns, Julius.ai does a great job of that. So it's kind of more inclined towards that, right? Or if you look at copy.ai or jasper.ai, these AI tools call out that we can help you with your marketing. So specifically trained or specifically focused on helping you with your marketing efforts. So there is that second category with a little more focus on a particular domain, a particular pillar or such, right? The third category is embedded generative AI. So your tools that we have all used to for long now, like your Jira, your Salesforce.com, your HubSpot, your ServiceNow, many software tools that have been in use for a long time by various organizations for various purposes are now beginning to realize the value of embedding a generative AI possibility within their tool. For instance, if you go to Jira, Jira has its own intelligence now, an AI intelligence within. You don't have to write your Jira query language queries anymore because you can just go type your questions there. Can you help me find all the user stories that meet this criteria in this particular project? Boom, it gives it back to you. You don't have to figure out how to construct a Jira query, right? If you go to Salesforce, if you go to GitHub, many of them have these embedded AI capabilities. It's a conversational AI, just like we would use ChatGPT or others. That's the third category in my mind. The fourth one, which I mentioned, is a bit of a digression, may not be an apples to apples comparison as a category, but provides a very interesting promise, which is agentic AI, right? AI that can take a task from you and perform it end to end, even if it means it has to do multiple steps, possibly interact with other systems and get it done for you. The way I like to picture it is if you're looking to build a mobile app, if you are able to capture your requirements in a document saying this is what I'm hoping this mobile app will do for my business or for my market, for my customers, whatever it is, and you hand it off to this agentic AI. And by the way, this is hypothetical, okay? This capability does not exist today. That agentic AI will take your requirement and go work on it, whatever needs to be done to get the app up and running, and come back to you saying, here is an app that has been tested and pretty much works for the requirement you proposed. Would you like me to make any tweaks in it? Right? Boom. So almost like performing an entire project for you. This kind of capability does not exist today, in case anyone out there is getting anxious or excited about it. But that's the promise of agentic AI, right? Today, it's able to do much smaller, more focused tasks. But nevertheless, that's the promise, right? That you give me a direction and I'll go do things for you, right? Unlike generative AI as we use it today, where it's more point in time. We ask a question, it gives us a response. We give it some context, it analyzes the data for us, right? So that's a little of question and answer almost. Whereas agentic AI is give me a task, I'll go work on it for you, right? So all these AI systems in the context of agile, in the context of scaling agile for an enterprise, can help us do many things. I've just called out a few things here to get our thought process started in terms of automating some routine tasks like backlog grooming, story refinement, help us identify risks that are hard to otherwise detect, help us analyze various types of data, right? Whether it is data on our team's performance, on our overall portfolio progress, or such, right? It can help us manage our stakeholders better, and ultimately can help all agile practitioners, regardless of your role as a product owner, release train engineer, Scrum master, a developer within the team, whatever it is that you're doing. These AI tools can work with you to help you make your do your job better, faster, and more effectively, right? So it just doesn't support our work. It certainly does that, but I would like to think of it as it even redefines how the work flows at scale, right? So as you chew on that, let's continue here. So what I'm going to do is for the rest of the session, and I'll also be mindful of time, I'm going to walk you through possible use cases of generative AI in the context of scaling agile. And I'll give you small snippets of demos along the way so that you start getting a taste for it, right? And I'll also share the same prompts on chat, at least some of them, if not all of them. So you're welcome to try it with me. If you have an access, if you already have access to any generative AI tool like ChatGPT or Copilot or Google Gemini or Claude.ai or Perplexity.ai, any or all of these, you can try this along with me. Now, if you don't have one yet, I find that hard to believe. Have a suspicion most of you are already using generative AI or at least have dabbled with it. But in case you don't have one, it should take you a minute to go sign up for a free account with just a valid email, right? So you're welcome to do that as well as we go through this. So let's start by looking at, hey, what can generative AI do for us in automating certain agile processes or agile workflows, right? So as I said, I'm just going to call out a few use cases along the way to start getting a sense of what we can use AI for. And no presumptions here. It's possible that some of you are already using generative AI for some of these tasks. In which case, I hope we're just emphasizing that, hey, this is the right direction. But for others, I hope it will also give you some new food for thought, right? So let's look at use case number one, right? Where generative AI can actually help us with our backlog, whether it is helping us as a product owner who's aware of the market, aware of our competitors, aware of what the pain points are for our customers, what are we trying to deliver? Can we convert that into a series of backlog items? Can we align it with value streams? Can we look at what are the OKRs of the organization, how the work items have been broken down and aligned to that? Right? All of these are possible. Let's start with a quick and simple demo where the context is that we have just wrapped up some customer research in a sprint, right? And gathered a batch of qualitative feedback back from our stakeholders, customers, users, however you like to think of them as. And this feedback is there documented. And instead of manually looking at it and trying to make sense of it, can we involve generative AI to do some of the heavy lifting for us and maybe lead to the creation of some additional backlog items or give us some structure that we can then build off of, right? So let me share my screen again with ChatGPT or Claude or one of these. I'll show you a couple of different ones today. Give me a quick second while I do that. Okay, here we go. And I also have a simple text file that I've created for myself where I've written all the prompts for today's demos so that I don't end up typing everything in front of you, right? So that can be a little klutzy. I'll probably keep making typos and oops, go back, backspace and all that. So to avoid all that, I've just created all the prompts in a text file, just copy and paste and show you a quick demo, right? So remember the context. We've got some feedback from our customers, users, stakeholders, and we're trying to make sense of it and see if we can lend it some structure and give us a next step to act on it, right? Otherwise, we kind of have to start by looking at each item of feedback, try to maybe create some common clusters, try to get some insights out of it, right? Which is time consuming. So can AI help us get started on that? So let me start with Claude. So Christabel, can you help confirm that Claude.ai is visible on my screen? Or Labib, any one of you? Is Claude.ai visible on my screen? Or any of you can answer on chat as well that it's visible. Okay, thank you so much. So let me get to my little helper doc here and start with this one. Okay, so let me walk you through this prompt for this short demo. From the following customer feedback, generate user stories categorized under 3 impacted value streams: user onboarding, payment experience, and support resolution. Format each story using the as a user role I want, what is that I want, so that what's the outcome, right? So kind of how we write typically our user stories. And here is some sample customer feedback I've shared. For example, someone is complaining, hey, it took me forever to sign up. The steps weren't clear at all. Or my payment, when I tried to pay online, failed. And I didn't get any reason why it failed. I contacted support for some issue, but no one got back to me. And so on, right? So let me go ahead and share this with Claude just to see what Claude does. I'm not implying that Claude is probably the better AI for such a use case. No, I'm just randomly showing you the possibilities. Okay. So here it is. It comes back saying, okay, based on the customer feedback, I've created user stories organized under the 3 value streams and using the standard format that you called out. The stories capture the key issues customer experienced. These user stories can now be used to prioritize development work and improvements across these critical customer touchpoints. So you can see that it came back with clear onboarding steps. As a new user, I want clear and intuitive onboarding steps so I can complete the sign up process without confusion or frustration. Under payment experience value stream, it talks about as a user making a payment, I want clear explanations when my payment fails so that I can understand what went wrong and how to fix it, and so on, right? So you can see it has created about 2 user stories under each of these. Now, let me make it a little more interesting. Let me tell Claude, can you also include acceptance criteria for each user story? Because this is something that we need, right? A user story without acceptance criteria is kind of only half written. So we absolutely need that detailed and clear acceptance criteria, which often acts as kind of the design for our test use cases, right? So it's coming back with acceptance criteria for each story, as you can see. And while it's doing that, let me also share this prompt on chat. Okay, I'm sharing this prompt on chat just in case you want to try it. And you're also, by the way, welcome to tweak it. If you want to have some fun with it, change the customer feedback to something else that you have seen in the real world, or you want to change the context completely, you're welcome to try that as well. So there's a question from LinkedIn: how is searching for info a non-value added task? Well, it is not the actual gaining of the info that is not value, non-value added, but it's the time taken to search, right? Because if the information is buried somewhere and you need to go around searching for it, is it in this document? Was it in that email I sent 6 months back? Was it in this Kanban board that we used last week? Where is that information, right? So looking, the process of actually looking for the information, I'm sure you'll agree, is kind of time sink, right? Not very value added. We are not talking about the actual information itself. Information is always valuable, but the process of searching for information. Okay. I hope that answers the question to whoever asked this on LinkedIn. Coming back to our activity here, let's continue here with our slides in the interest of time. So we started off with a quick demo in this context. Let's look at the next possibility here under the same umbrella of automating agile workflows. Another possibility could be, now remember, I'm not walking you through all the possibilities. We're only looking for some possibilities here. Oh, my bad. I think I put it only on hosts and panelists. Thank you for calling that out. Let me put it to everyone. There, you should have it now. Okay. I share it with everyone now, Nitin. Thank you for pointing that out. So remember, I'm not sharing all the possibilities here. The possibilities are probably infinite, as I'm sure you can imagine, but just a few to get us started, right? On the thought process. So another possibility is refining stories and validating whether some of the stories we have come up with are in line with our definition of done and such, or called out sprint goal or objective. If you've called out a sprint goal and we're creating some user stories, are they in line with that sprint goal? All of these are things that go a long way to ensure that our sprints eventually add genuine value to our stakeholders, right? Because sometimes we get too caught up in the whole mechanics of practicing agile. We break down epics into user stories and actionable tasks. People pick them up. We do the story point sizing, and then we go work on it. We have our ceremonies all promptly, and then at the end of it, we do a sprint review, sprint retro. We are done. We move on to something next, right? But can we be sure that what we delivered there actually added genuine value? Could we have done more to add more value at the end of every sprint, right? Those are some of the things that can come out really well using some of these AI possibilities. So it can help us suggest acceptance criteria, edge cases, identify gaps or unclear requirements, and accelerate the whole process of doing our backlog grooming and getting our sprint backlog in shape so that we can start working on it, right? And it can also, used correctly, it can also promote some consistency among teams across how we do this. When we say consistency, often we think of standardization that stifles innovation and creativity. That's not the thought process here, right? Consistency being that we're able to talk the same language, right? Okay, let's get to the demo in this particular use case. So here we have a user story in progress. And can we ask generative AI, as in we are creating the user story, maybe as part of the sprint planning session, can we ask generative AI to refine it and check if it meets the standard criteria for sprint planning and completion readiness, right? So let me head over to my little helper doc and get the prompt from that. Okay, this time I will use ChatGPT to keep it interesting. And let me share, let me talk about what the prompt is, and then I'll share it on chat as well if any of you want to try it out. So basically, we are asking ChatGPT here, hey, can you review this user story for completeness? Suggest some refinements and highlight any gaps based on the standard definition and acceptance criteria if missing, right? And the user story is a very simple one. Again, when I give you this on chat, you're welcome to make it more complex, more nuanced as you see fit. As a user, I want to reset my password so that I can regain access to my account. While ChatGPT is responding, let me put this on chat for you folks. Okay, I put the same prompt on chat if you want to try along. That is unusual. I think you should be able to copy it. I think the Control C hotkeys may not work. What you can do is highlight the whole thing, right click and see if it'll allow you to copy, Nitin. Sometimes that works better on some of these tools. So just highlight the
Yes.
and right click and click on copy. Okay, so here is what ChatGPT came back with. So it basically says basic intent is clear, business value is implied but should be made explicit. Acceptance criteria is missing, must be added. There are no dependencies listed here, and we cannot verify success or failure without criteria. So what are the guidelines that it's going through? Invest, right? The best practices for writing good user stories are around independent, negotiable, valuable, estimatable, small, and testable. So is it testable? And it's saying probably not, because you're not called out the success criteria, right? Similarly, assumes code will be written but not specified, no test coverage indicated, no process noted, and so on. And it gives us a refined user story along with some suggested acceptance criteria. It is also giving us some suggested additions and refinements and so on, right? Fairly comprehensive response for a complete prompt out of the blue without any context. Now imagine if ChatGPT had a lot of context in terms of what is the project, what is the goal of the sprint, what are we working on, what are we hoping to achieve. If it had a lot more context, the answers would probably be very more nuanced. Okay. All right. Let me continue here then.
Yes, Nagin, just a quick one. I will be sharing a doc with the prompts so that it's easy for everyone.
Sure. Are
Yeah,
you able to
please
copy
continue. I'll drop it in.
You're able to copy it, is it, Christopher?
Yes, I'm able to. Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for helping out there.
You're most
Let's come to use case possibility number 3. Maybe I should have called this possibilities instead of use cases, but fair enough. Um, Sprint planning across distributed teams, right? Where two of us are in one geography, two others are in a different geography. The third, set of people are in a completely different time zone. All of these are very real and very possible today, right? So again, we can use generative AI to help us align the sprint goals with team capacities, any known dependencies, avoid overcommitment or underutilization, both of which can hurt the team in the long run. It can even suggest optimal distribution across time zones and ultimately help us collaborate better among our distributed team members, right? So let's take a look at another short demo here. So let's assume the scenario is that we have 3 agile teams working together on a project located in the US, India, and Europe, right? Each team has a different capacity. It could be the number of people in the team, the public holidays vary from geography to geography, all of these are possible. A set of stories that are being worked on, and a few interdependencies. And given this context, can we ask AI to help us spot the risks, possibly balance the load, and maybe even suggest a coordinated sprint plan, right? So let me head over to my little helper doc. And here I have um, a data set that I'll actually upload to the generative AI system and use that as context or input, right? So you may not be able to try this out with me because I have not yet given you these helper docs, but that's okay. I think it's more important that we take a look at the possibilities together, whether it's me trying out on my screen or you trying it out later also is okay. So let me go ahead and copy the prompt first, and then I'll show you what is the data set I'm about to use here. So I have a few different comma separated value files open here. So this is the one that I'll be using for this particular activity. Now this data set is of course very rudimentary, but that's okay. My intent was to show you that you can share data with these AI systems where you are confident that you're not violating any data governance guidelines within your organization, within your ecosystem. Always keep that in mind, right? So cautionary note when using AI, always make sure that especially if you're using a public generative AI system, public model like a chatgpt.com or a copilot.com, make sure that you're aware of your organizational guidelines and practices on what you can share with these AI systems and what you cannot, right? There's a lot more to that. Many of these AI systems allow you to toggle whether it'll learn and improve its model based on the data you provided, or you explicitly prohibit that. But even if you explicitly prohibit that, it can still store your data somewhere. And even that might be a violation of some of your organizational rules. So always, always, always be cautious when uploading any information in the form of attachments or any other format as well, that you're staying well within the guidelines of your organization. And if there are no guidelines, you may want to ask, saying, "Hey, what if I use a tool for a purpose like this? Is that allowed? Or do we have any guidelines? Should we form some guidelines?" Maybe you can take the lead on that, right? So that's just something I like to call out as a cautionary note. Now, since I mentioned that, I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but in case you're not, there is always the other possibility of creating a private AI network or a private AI model deployment within our organization's private network. Now, that's a whole different ball game altogether. It requires a different type of skills to put it all together, and perhaps your organizations have that and they're considering it. But what that does is ensures that any documents you upload, any information you share is all contained within your organization's network. There is no public model behind it that may make use of it for training itself or store it anywhere in a non-organizational server. So that's another possibility, but I'm digressing a bit. Let me come back to the demo at hand. So I'm going to upload this. If you can see what it's talking about the three teams we talked about. One in the US, one in India, and one in EU, with a varying sprint capacity in terms of story points, right? And assigned stories and the estimates and the dependencies, if there are any. In some cases, there are no dependencies. The other cases, one team has a dependency on another or within the same team. So that being the case, let me go back to ChatGPT and share my prompt here first. Based on the following team data, suggest a sprint plan that balances workload, flag cross-team dependencies, and highlight risk. Each sprint is 2 weeks in duration. Okay. Now I'll attach that particular document here for additional context. Okay. So let me go to where my data set is. It was this one, if you remember, sprint planning team data.csv. I'm going to upload that. And let's see what ChatGPT comes back with. So it comes back with a sprint plan overview where it calls out the remaining capacity. All teams are under or near capacity, balanced and sustainable sprint. Cross-team dependencies, it calls out what that is and what the status is. Risk if team beta falls behind. Internal sequencing is required, right? One after the other, because it's an internal within the team dependency. Risks and mitigations, cross-team delivery delay. Team Alpha's checkout story relies on Team Beta's payment gateway. If Beta is deleted, then Alpha is blocked. So prioritize payment gateway early in the sprint. Now, all these might sound like a lot of common sense, right? But in a really large setup, there is no one individual who may have eyes on all of this consistently all the time, right? Now, sure, the RTE can try to orchestrate some of these things, but all said and done, we are limited by our human capabilities. And if we miss something, it can lead to consequences that we really were hoping to avoid. So using tools like this can actually help us make sure that even those finest details, even those smallest points are not missed, and we are able to very clearly plan on how we're going to execute this, how we're going to manage all these dependencies and so on, right? So it's called out a few other risks as well, like tight capacity, and the mitigation is suggested is flag auto suggestions for potential deferral if issues arise, and so on. It even came back with a sprint plan recommendation for all the teams and so on, right? Now, you may be thinking, but I don't do all my planning on generative AI. I do it on tools like Jira or Asana or Trello or Monday.com or ClickUp, whatever it is, right? Now, while we won't get into the details here, Christabel will share something with you at the end of this session in terms of what you can sign up for. But there are tools that can help us create a tool chain of automation. For instance, let's say that you have an inbox, an email inbox dedicated to incoming customer feedback. So you're given an email ID to your customer saying feedback at xyzcorp.com. Please send all feedback here for your product, right? And that inbox is full of emails from customers and stakeholders who are sharing their feedback. And you have a project working on that particular product on Jira. Now, using one possibility, a tool called Zapier, right? I can actually set up automation such that every time a new email comes in on that particular inbox, I take the content of that email, pass it on to a generative AI tool like ChatGPT, and this is all happening automatically, right? Not somebody sitting and doing it manually, and prompt it to say, hey, this is the feedback I got from a customer. Does it appear to be valid feedback? And if you think it makes sense for this particular project, where I've already given it the context of the project, can we create a user story out of it? And ChatGPT will, every time this happens, it gets triggered. The email bar content is shared with ChatGPT via a tool like Zapier, or Microsoft has something similar called Power Automate, and it spits back the outcome saying, sure, it looks good. Here is a user story that you can create based on this feedback. And in the same or Zapier or whatever automation hub I'm using, I can add another step to my automation saying, take the output from ChatGPT and create a user story in this project in Jira, right? So imagine that, right? Every time there's an email coming in, automatically all this happens for you. Now you don't want your Jira project to be spammed with a lot of requirements. So you can create maybe a staging project and look at the incoming user stories automatically being created by a combination of the email inbox, Zapier, and ChatGPT for you, and decide whichever ones you think are actually valid or prioritize you want to work on. Maybe the product owner can do this. Move it to an actual production project, right? So all these are possibilities. So in case you're thinking this looks cool, but what do I do with this data if I get it on ChatGPT? Well, there are ways you can actually use this in an automated tool chain as well. But even without that, in many contexts, I don't have such, in many of the agile projects that I participate in or am like onboarded as a coach, we don't necessarily have a lot of automation like that yet. But even then, this kind of work on a generative AI tool often helps quite a bit in terms of making sure that we have dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's and catch some misses, and overall improve the efficiency of whatever we are trying to achieve. Okay. Can you have multiple employee email addresses to be used or need to create? I'm guessing, Stephanie, you're asking in the context of the automation toolchain I just mentioned. You will have to create multiple automations then, which is entirely possible, right? How can we control to keep the data private if my organization don't use AI? So that's something that, as I told you, the options are, you'll have to be careful about not sharing any confidential data with your AI tools, or you'll have to anonymize or mask the data so that no private, confidential information is shared in a direct way, or you'll have to consider creating a private AI network within your organization, right? There are many possibilities. I just gave you some there, Ahmed. Okay. Okay, let's go back to my slides and let's look at another set of possibilities in the context of how AI can help us with our decision making in the context of our overall portfolio, right? Again, we'll just be exploring a few possibilities here. But again, I'm only hoping that at the end of it, I'm getting you excited about all this and opening up your imagination a little more, perhaps to try more things than you've already tried, right? Or imagine more possibilities than you already have. So It can help us identify cross team dependencies, and in many such contexts, natural language processing, visual mapping, all of this can become very handy. So it can help us analyze user stories, Jira tickets for hidden dependencies, use natural language patterns to help us connect work items, saying, hey, this guy called out a user story or a task in this way. You have something similar here. You may want to examine if there is some correlation or dependency there, and so on. Right? It can help us generate interactive visual maps. ChatGPT is not great at that, but there are other tools that do a good job of that. Ultimately improving coordination, right, during events like PI planning. For those of you who used the scaled agile framework, PI planning is a very pivotal event, right? If we do that right, then possibly we can look forward to some productive value coming through in the next 2-3 months. And if we don't do the PI planning or we miss something, then it's probably going to be a bit shaky, right, going forward. Let's look at a quick demo here again. So the context is we are preparing for PI planning. We have multiple epics and user stories coming in from different teams. Some dependencies are obvious, but others are buried in text or assumptions. If they just made a note somewhere that, hey, remember that there is a dependency on this team, right? Not formally called out, but just a note somewhere, right? Things like that. Can we use generative AI to uncover some of those and recommend actions, right? So let's take a look at the prompt for this one. Again, I have a data set that I'll use here. I'll show you what that is. Let me first copy the prompt. And this is called upload cross team dependencies input. Okay, so let me head over to my numbers and show you that particular file. And by the way, I'm sure you've all figured this out by now, but for the purposes of these demos, I created all these sample data sets also using generative AI, right? So kind of eating my own dog food here. And that's also a very valuable use case where if you need to test something, but you don't have enough test data, you can describe what kind of test data you're hoping to get and get synthetic data from these generative AI tools. Another very, very valuable use case of using generative AI. But I digress. Let me come back to what I was talking about. So here you can see that, again, it's fairly simple. There are 4 teams: alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. There is a work item called out and a description called out, right? So let's use this data set and head back to ChatGPT. I'll put my prompt in here. Analyze the following list of user stories and epics. Identify any implicit, not explicitly called out, implicit cross-team dependencies and suggest a visual mapping of how work items are connected across teams. Okay. So let me go back and add the next um, data set here. Give me 1 second. Make sure I'm in the right folder. Here I am. Okay. Cross team dependencies input.csv. Okay. So first it shows me that it got the attachment I gave it, right? That's a good kind of a confirmation that, hey, I got the data you gave me. And then it is responding. There could be a dependency that's called out. Team beta story update notification logic depends on the successful implementation of the user registration revamp by team alpha. Dang, we did not know that now, did we? Let's take a look. User registration revamp includes new email validation and ID verification. And it's calling out that update notification logic might have a bearing on that or dependency on that because it sends email and SMS based on registration completion, right? So kind of an implicit, albeit a rudimentary one, but imagine if the same thing happened at a large scale where there are 8, 10, 12 teams coming together with a lot of text-based information available like this, but not formally identified dependencies. What have we missed, right? Can generative AI act as a catch-all for us, right? So you can see it has called that out. It has called out another one. Gamma's analytics for sign-up drop-off story relies on data from the new registration flow. Uh, Team Delta's legal compliance check requires updated user data structures introduced in the user registration revamp and so on, right? And as I told you, I would probably not use ChatGPT for any visualization, although it's done a fairly decent job here, right? By helping us visualize the dependencies with boxes and arrows. But if you want more nuanced visualization, there are many other tools that can be used for that along with ChatGPT, right? Okay, so let me go back to my slides and continue. Another possibility under the same umbrella of decision making with our portfolio, generative AI can be used to simulate the impact of something going wrong. What happens if something is delayed? or some capabilities not like prioritized properly, right? So can we visualize that impact across the dependent teams? Can we identify critical path items that cannot tolerate slippage? As in, if that slips, then the whole pack of cards comes down, right? And provide justification to leadership for reprioritization, saying, I know you want this prioritized because you are desperate to show this to a customer, but if we don't prioritize this is the outcome that you can be worried about, right? So that's the kind of thing that and generative AI can help us with. Let's take a look at a short demo here, again in the spirit of what we've been doing so far. So we often have to delay an epic due to resource constraints, shifting priorities, technical blockers, and so on. But understanding the true impact of such a delay, especially on other teams and at a high level on the OKRs of the organization, isn't always obvious. So let's see how AI can simulate the ripple effect of delaying one key epic. Okay, so let me head back to my little helper doc. There is another data set that I'll be using. I'll show you that. It's called Epic Delay Impact Input. Let me go back to my numbers and show you that one. Here we go. So here we have a few different epics, dependent work items, teams, current timeline, and strategic objective of those epics, right? So I'm sure you're beginning to think, who has all this kind of data, right? All this looks nice when you have nicely created, nicely laid out data, but in the real world, do we really have data like this? If you're thinking that, you're thinking of an excellent point, right? Because ultimately AI is only as good as the data we feed it. So as agile practitioners, one of the best practices I'm often imploring my teams to do, whether it's a scrum master, especially a scrum master, but product owners, developers, others in the ecosystem, that keep collecting data about how the process is working, about the priorities you're working on, about how decisions were made. The more your data you collect, and for scrum masters, I even tell them to collect data about the people, right? That this individual missed these two ceremonies last two sprints. This individual expressed a concern about this. This is the feedback we got in the retro. Keep capturing. The more data we get together, the more AI can help us, right? So if you're thinking, where do we get neatly laid out data like this? You're absolutely right. It is entirely on your shoulders to make sure that data is collated and used to get the maximum benefit of AI. So let me head back to my chat GPT, paste my prompt there. If the Epic user registration revamp, right, which is the first one, is delayed by two sprints, what will be the downstream impact on related stories, team timelines, and dependent OKRs? Suggest mitigation actions. So let me share that file with this prompt, Epic delay impact input, and send this prompt to ChatGPT. As always, it kind of confirmed that, yep, I was able to open the CSV file you gave me. And here it comes back saying, okay, delayed timeline, original timeline is sprint 3 to 4. Simulated delayed timeline is 2 sprints later, 5 to 6. Downstream impact on related stories and items, right? It calls out that notification logic cannot start before sprint 6. Sign up analytics postponed to sprint beyond sprint 7. And this can lead to loss of data for Q2 insights. Legal compliance, overlaps with unrelated security issues, risk of non-compliance, and team overload. So it comes back, it gave me some strategic objectives, risk summary as well, and mitigation actions, right? Create mock interfaces for early parallelization. This is something many of us do already, right? We create stubbed out API calls, mock interfaces. But what does that do? It creates technical debt because we have to come back and change it again, right? So something to think about. Not every mitigation action will not be free. It will come with some cost, right? So let me be the devil's advocate and say some of your mitigation recommendations might add to our technical debt. Thoughts on that, right? See how this is a conversation, right? It's all never about, I shared something, I got an output, I'm done. I think we need to start thinking about more of this as a conversation, right? So let's see what it says. You're absolutely right to raise the concern. Mitigation strategies like mock integrations and partial decoupling can accelerate delivery, but they do carry the risk of increasing technical debt. Here's how to think about it strategically. So clearly tag these tasks as technical debt in your backlog. Basically, it's telling us don't lose sight of the technical debt, right? Cool. Let's come back to my slides and look at the third use case under portfolio decision making, right? Another thing that generative AI can help us with is combine scoring models with qualitative business context in terms of if you're struggling to prioritize or if you're struggling to demonstrate the value of a particular epic or user story or initiative. What is the ROI on this, or if ROI is provided, how can we use it in our context? Can we also integrate some historical performance data? Can we align portfolios dynamically? Right? We have a portfolio of initiatives, OKRs, epics, whatever you have in place, and we have some constantly changing market information, customer expectations that we have some pipeline of data on. Can we align that dynamically? All those are possibilities. Let's look at our last demo for the day here. This is the last demo, right? We are entering a quarterly planning cycle, perhaps like a PI planning, but maybe not as much yet, right? Not specifically a PI planning yet, and have multiple competing epics. So we are kind of struggling with the prioritization. Each has a different business impact, delivery complexity, and level of risk. Can we use AI to help us prioritize based on a value, effort, risk framework, right? Value, effort, and risk, right? So let me go back to my helper doc. There is one last data set I'll be using for this. Let me show you that, called prioritization input data. Okay. So here you can see that there are about 5 epics and there are 3 columns calling out the business value on a scale of 1 to 10, the delivery effort in terms of story points. Even if we don't have this, we can use delivery effort in terms of some other kind of scale, which is not exactly numeric in like story points. And what is the risk level, right? We have kept it simple here with high, medium, low, but you can also make it more nuanced depending on how you look at risk in your context, right? So let me go back to our friend ChatGPT and paste my prompt here. Given the following list of initiatives, let me type the missing G there. Rank them in order of priority using a value, effort, risk trade-off model. Provide rationale and suggested groupings, right? So let me attach the required file. Okay. And let's see what ChatGPT comes back with. So scoring criteria, it calls out to normalize and compare value score as is, scale of 1 to 10, effort score inverted to favor lower effort. Risk score penalized as follows. Low is 1, medium is 2, and high is the number of 3 is the highest score, right? And it even shows the formula, how it will compute it. So you can go back and say, hey, no, change this. And if you want to do something different. So it doubles the weight of business value, rewards lower effort, and penalizes higher risk. So it's a weighted formula, right? But a very rudimentary one, no doubt. So let's calculate the risk and let's calculate and rank them. So it ranks this particular epic at number 1, this particular epic at number 2, 3, and 4, and 5, right? So here is the prioritized list of initiatives ranked by a value, effort, risk trade-off model. Only real-time order tracking surfaced as medium priority, with all others falling into low priority based on their combined value, effort, and risk. If you'd like to change the formula, you can, right? So pretty cool. Now we can, of course, always go back and ask it to do something different or share more information that leads to a different kind of computation, or we can ask it to use different like prioritization criteria like Moscow or WSFJ and so on, and see how that compares to this risk value effort approach, so that we get data from multiple possibilities and decide which one to proceed with, right? So that was my last demo for today. I hope the demos themselves gave you a way to quickly visualize what are some of the things that we can do if you have not already been doing some of those things. And again, we are barely scratching the surface here, right? Because primarily I just used some very simple data sets, asked for straightforward things in the prompt. We have not looked at how multiple AI tools can be used. For example, when would I use a Julius.ai? Or when would I use uh, embedded AI within Jira and so on. So all of these, there is so much more to do. But let's take a quick look at one more possibility here without any demos. Here I'm not doing any demos, just primarily to respect everyone's time. Accelerate collaboration. Agile teams are nothing if they don't collaborate, right? I think we all agree. Collaboration is one of the foundational tenets of a successful agile team. So, what can AI do for us in this space? So, I've called out a few different possibilities here, right? You can transcribe and analyze your retrospective feedback in real time. You can come out with common themes. If you have, as a Scrum Master, you've gathered the retro feedback from the past 5 sprints, you can upload it and say, hey, what's the team sentiment? So these AI tools can do a sentiment analysis for you. Looking at everyone's feedback, it can say, hey, over the past 5 sprints, generally sentiment seems to be trending upwards, or is mostly flat, or is trending downwards, hopefully not, right? Starting with things like that, there is a whole lot that these AI tools can do for you, leading to better decisions, proactive action in terms of getting things done before things start going south. It can help you summarize your PI planning things, which typically run for 2 days, right? Kind of putting all that together and coming out with something harmonious to go forward with is not easy. So being able to capture all the things discussed in our PI planning and prioritize across one or multiple ARTs, your agile release trains, and ultimately reducing the need to take photos of all those sticky notes on a glass wall. Even if you do take a photo, you can, guess what, you can give that photo as input to a generative AI tool and ask it, hey, this was what we discussed as part of this particular session. We put our thoughts up on sticky notes on this glass wall, and I've uploaded a picture to you. Can you make sense of it? Entirely possible, right? So the third possibility I want to call out is keeping your stakeholders updated. So as I was mentioning earlier, if you use an automation hub like Zapier or Power Automate, you can actually on trigger pull updates from tools like Jira and pass it on to ChatGPT that or Julius or others that can create a well formatted, crisp and meaningful update with some visualizations that you can automatically then share by email to your stakeholders. It's possible. There are some limitations. For example, my frustration with Zapier and Jira coming together is it allows only story level information to be exchanged today. I'm hoping it will come to a point, it will evolve quickly to a point where we can get sprint level information. Not quite there yet, but I remain hopeful that they'll get it done quickly because that's where the true value of automation tool chains like this coming together will be, right? So you can create tailored updates for senior execs, other stakeholders, customers. You can create visual dashboards. And guess what? If you don't want to do all this using ChatGPT, Zapier, you can go into Jira and using the embedded AI there, you can do some of these things as well. So Atlassian has created a very broad-based AI and have embedded it into all their products. So you can actually use this AI tool called Rovo, ROVO. If it's not currently available in your Jira instance, it's probably because your organization has not upgraded or has not enabled it. So it could be one of the two possibilities. But if you are in a fully upgraded Jira instance with Rovo enabled, you can take full advantage of it. It actually even gives you some canned ready-made agents that you can say, hey, I want to use this agent in my project, and it'll get that task done for you, right? You don't even have to create the agent. There are pre-canned AI agents available for you and many other possibilities that can ultimately make all our jobs so much more effective, easier, and um, iron out some of the wrinkles in our agile constructs, right? Because we're all humans. We tend to miss things. We tend to lose track of some priorities. We tend to, quite honestly, make some mistakes sometimes. And the use of all these tools can help reduce the possibility of those things happening and generally make value delivery faster and more effective. Because ultimately, that's what I'm sure we'll all agree that agile is all about, right? So there are many tools out there. Um, some of my fairly often used ones are ChatGPT, Julius, Zapier, and so on. But that does not mean those are the best. So when somebody asks me, which is the best AI tool out there, I say I don't know, and because that's probably not the question you should be asking, because there are AI tools out there that do well in specific contexts. So unfortunately, we're already living in a world where, if you remember, when Netflix came out, we thought that was the next magic after sliced bread. and we thought that's it, this is going to change our world. And just a few months, a couple of years in, we realized, oh man, to really entertain ourselves, we need to subscribe to so many different OTT platforms, right? We need Netflix, we need Prime Video, we need, like, I don't know, Hotstar, whatever else kind of has shows that interest us. Kind of on those lines, you may have to experiment a little which of these tools work best for what context you're looking for, right? And also start exploring in the tools that you already have within your organization, be it Atlassian's suite of tools like Confluence and Jira, be it like ClickUp, be it Asana, Monday.com, whatever else you're using today. One thing that you can quickly do is go figure out whether they have some embedded AI capabilities already. And it might just be a matter of making a case for your admin and your executives to switch the capability on. Here you go. You can now use the AI within our tools, and that might, save you a lot of trouble of subscribing to new AI tools like, or additional AI tools like ChatGPT. And a lot of the work that you're looking to get done, you may be able to get done within the embedded AI. But my point here is that there are a whole suite of tools out there growing by exponential numbers every day. And the whole, which is the best AI tool, is a very mythical quest. It's better to think of, for this particular task, for this particular context, for this particular team, which is the best AI tool, and then go exploring, right? So that's probably the best output on the best answer I can give to that question, which is the best AI tool out there. In case you're thinking, is all this sounds nice, but is it all very hypothetical? There are plenty of case studies of Agile and AI working wonderfully well together, organizations taking advantage of it. I've called out, but just one here of Bosch, right? A very large and well heard of German engineering firm with a global presence, where they have clearly called out in a case study on their website. So this is public information, not something I got through any insider channels, that they've created AI augmented portfolio management within their organization, where the problem was coordination across a large number of agile teams, 200 plus, dependency tracking, slow portfolio decisions, fragmented updates to stakeholders, and so on. And they used AI, a combination of different AI tools and technologies, to map cross team dependencies, just like we took a look at in one of our demos, generate stakeholder briefings from based on sprint data, predict risk, and so on. Where the impact they've called out in that case study is that dependency identification went from 2+ weeks to less than 2 days. 40% improvement in sprint planning efficiency. That is that magic number, right? I called out, if you remember, at the beginning of today's session. The average number I hear and I have personally observed is a 40% boost to productivity. And nothing in the recent decades has allowed us that kind of a productivity boost, right? So it is actually something very impressive, something to think about. Weekly dashboards, automated leadership updates, and many other things that they've called out in their case studies. I just kind of summarized what they've called out there, just to connect you to reality, right? In case you're thinking, is there anyone who's really doing this? And some of you might be your own case studies. You may already be doing this, but in case some of you are not and wondering, sounds nice, but is it castles in the air? It's not. There are many organizations actually using it in a very relevant and meaningful way already. So, key takeaways from today's session. Keep in mind that generative AI is a great partner in the room. In the context of Agile, it's more than just that. It can act as an orchestration engine for you, right? It can orchestrate all the complexities, put it all together, make it all a nice visual board for you. When I say visual board, don't take it with a pinch of salt. You know what I'm saying. To give you that sense of understanding the big picture, connecting the dots. Not just you. When I say you, anyone in your ecosystem. Productivity can be tremendously boosted, eliminating a lot of wasted time and effort. People may think that, hey, AI will replace jobs. Valid concern. I've not observed it, not seen it personally. I believe what I have seen is that two things. One, AI is primarily being used to help people do better at their jobs, right? Not eliminate their job, but do better at their jobs. The second thing I've seen is that anyone who's resistant to acquiring these skills or not focused on acquiring these skills do face the risk of obsolescence, right? Their role might not get eliminated, but they individually might not be fit for that role anymore. So there is that risk. So something we all have to take to heart, that this is a skill. of using AI to our advantage is a skill that we all need to very quickly develop and perfect. The good news is it's not too hard, right? It doesn't require any deeply technical specialized skills. So prompt engineering with the craft of fashioning good prompts is now a core skill in any function, especially in an agile team. And ultimately, the future of enterprise agility is driven by data, is calls for instant results, and will be powered by AI, right? So we need to make that choice and start marching down the path of developing those skills, honing them, becoming an expert, and kind of become a champion, become a trailblazer, right? So that's my last takeaway for you folks. Hope this session has been useful. Hope it triggered some inspirational food for thought. Any further questions, please put it on chat. I'll continue to take a look at it. There is one from LinkedIn. How would the GPT look at diversified sources for information in the absence of integration with other tools? So this question coming in from a LinkedIn participant, then the responsibilities lies on you, right? If you're not integrating tools through an automation hub or whatever else works for you, you can even write your own code if that's something that interests you, where you can get API based access to these AI systems and share data that way. But there are many possibilities to integrate them. But if that's something you cannot do at all, then it rests on you, the user, the humble user's shoulders, to make sure that data is available on a timely basis to these AI systems, right? That's the only other choice. But in terms of integration, there are many choices. If Zapier is not something you want to use, if Power Automate is not something you want to use, there are many other possibilities to integrate them as well. Okay. Let me see if there are any quick questions I missed. So far, doesn't look like it. Fantastic. Okay.